Imagine a crime scene for a second.
Okay.
You know, you've got the yellow tape up, the flashing lights, you've got detectives scouring the brush for casings, right?
Standard setup.
Yeah. But now, imagine that the killer is standing right there inside the tape.
Yeah, that is...
He's in uniform. He's directing traffic.
Right.
He's actually the one telling the other officers where to look.
Yeah.
And, more importantly, where not to look.
It is the ultimate nightmare for any justice system. I mean, they call it the wolf in the sheep pen.
Exactly. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are unpacking a case that is terrifying, not just because of the crime itself, which, you know, was horrific,
right,
but because of the incredible battle that happened afterward. We're talking about the 1982 case of Robin Bishop and California Highway Patrol officer George Gwaltney.
And look, while the crime itself is the catalyst here, our mission for this deep dive is really to analyze the investigation.
Right, the methodology.
Exactly, because this wasn't a classic whodunit. Honestly, everyone basically knew who did it.
Yeah.
The real problem was proving it against a guy who had the badge, the public trust, and, you know, the actual police playbook.
Gwaltney wasn't just a suspect. He was an insider. He knew exactly how to secure a crime scene, how to fake an alibi, and crucially, how to destroy forensic evidence.
And the terrifying part is that it worked.
Twice.
Yeah, twice. That's the key context you have to understand here. He secured 2 mistrials, deadlocked juries both times,
Wow.
because he was a cop. He knew exactly how to manufacture just enough reasonable doubt the local courts just couldn't pin him down.
Which is exactly where the FBI stepped in. And this is the part I found really fascinating in our research. They couldn't just retry him for murder a third time, could they?
No, they couldn't, because of the double jeopardy rule. You can't be tried for the exact same crime 3 times by the same sovereign.
Right.
So the FBI had to use a totally different angle. They charged him under federal civil rights statutes, specifically the deprivation of rights resulting in death.
Talk about high stakes. I mean, if they lose this, he basically walks free forever.
Precisely. So to win this, they couldn't just rely on standard police work. They had to systematically dismantle a so-called perfect cover-up.
And they did it using 5 specific, highly advanced forensic methods.
They really threw the book at him.
They did. We're talking about things like neutron activation analysis, granular timeline reconstruction, and some really innovative biological work that predates modern DNA testing.
It really is a masterclass in forensic reconstruction.
It really is. So let's just get right into the weeds. The first major hurdle the FBI faced was the gun.
Right. And the gun is usually your smoking gun, literally. Ballistics 101 teaches us that the barrel of a gun leaves unique scratches.
Striations, right?
Exactly, striations on the bullet. And Gwaltney, being a cop, knew this perfectly well. He knew his service revolver would match the bullet found in Robin Bishop's head.
So his solution is just to get rid of it. He clears his house was burglarized and reports his service weapon stolen.
Right. But here is where he got just a little too clever for his own good. Investigators ended up finding the frame of a Smith & Wesson model 19.357 Magnum hidden in his truck.
Just the frame.
Just the frame.
Yeah.
The barrel, the cylinder, the hammer.
Basically all the parts that actually touch the bullet.
Like, those were totally gone.
So he stripped it down, his logic being no barrel, no ballistics match.
It was a very deliberate forensic countermeasure. He thought he was completely safe. But he made a massive mistake.
He kept the frame.
He kept the frame. And this brings us to method number 1 from our analysis.
Toolmark analysis.
Yes. This is where the FBI Firearms and Toolmark Unit comes in, specifically an agent named Jim Cadogan.
I love this part of the case because it really proves that even the act of destroying evidence leaves its own evidence.
It's so true, because to rip a barrel off a frame like that, you can't just twist it off with your bare hands.
Oh, you need serious leverage.
You need a vise, you need a heavy wrench, and metal tools leave microscopic signatures on softer metal.
Kind of like a mechanical fingerprint.
Exactly like a fingerprint. So they raided his garage.
Looking for the tools.
Right. They seized his whole toolbox, but specifically focused on a heavy pipe wrench they found behind the garage.
Okay.
Agent Cadogan took the gun frame, put it under a high-powered microscope, and found a tiny, almost invisible impression right near the pinhole where the barrel locks in.
How small are we actually talking here?
1/16 of an inch.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly tiny.
Tiny. But under high magnification, it told the entire story. Cadogan then looked at Gwaltney's pipe wrench and noticed it had a broken tooth.
Oh, man.
And right on that broken tooth is a very small, distinct island of metal. Cadogan matched that specific microscopic irregularity on the wrench directly to the impression on the gun frame.
So that completely proved Gwaltney didn't just lose the gun in some random burglary. He was the one who physically clamped it down and tore it apart.
It absolutely destroyed his burglary defense. Think about it. Why would a random burglar break into a house, steal a gun, meticulously disassemble it using the homeowner's own tools, and then just leave the frame behind in the homeowner's truck?
It makes absolutely no sense. It proves a clear intent to destroy evidence.
Exactly.
But, and this seems like but to me, proving he destroyed the gun doesn't necessarily prove he fired the fatal shot, right? I mean, they still didn't have the barrel to match the bullet found in the victim.
That is correct. They proved tampering, which is great, but they still needed to link the actual bullet from the crime scene directly to Gwaltney.
And traditional ballistics were totally out the window.
Completely useless without the barrel. So the FBI turned to method number 2, neutron activation analysis.
I have to say, when I read this in the research, it sounded like something straight out of Star Trek. Nuclear forensics.
I know it sounds totally wild, but the science is heavily rooted in manufacturing processes.
How so?
Think about how bullets are actually made. A manufacturer, like Remington for example, takes a massive vat of molten lead. But to make it useful for ammunition, they have to add a specific recipe of other metals.
Like hardening agents.
Yeah, things like antimony, silver, copper.
Okay, like ingredients in a recipe.
The case files actually use a really great analogy for this. Meatloaf.
Meatloaf?
Yeah, just stick with me here. Imagine you're making a meatloaf. You throw in your onions, your spices, the breadcrumbs.
Right.
Every single time you make a batch, the mixture is going to be slightly different. Even if you follow the exact same recipe, the precise distribution of those ingredients varies from batch to batch.
Oh, okay, I follow you now. So every batch of lead at the factory is chemically unique.
Exactly. The FBI took the bullet fragment recovered from the victim, then they went to Gwaltney's closet.
Now, Gwaltney swore up and down he didn't even own the specific type of ammo used in the murder, right?
Right. The murder weapon used Remington .357 158 grain soft points. He claimed he never used them.
But they found them.
They found 27 rounds of that exact ammunition hidden away in his belongings.
So they have the bullets from his closet. But how do they actually connect them to the murder bullet without those physical barrel scratches?
They put them in a nuclear reactor.
Of course they did. Why wouldn't they?
I know. They essentially bombarded the lead samples with neutrons, which makes them temporarily radioactive.
Wow.
This process allows them to measure the exact, precise atomic signature of the lead mixture. So they compared the bullet from the victim to the 27 bullets from Gwaltney's closet.
And let me guess.
It was a perfect match. They came from the exact same meatloaf, the exact same batch of molten lead at the factory.
That is just devastating for his defense. I mean, he swears he doesn't own that ammo. But the bullet in the victim is chemically identical to the ones hiding in his own house.
It links the murder weapon's ammunition directly to him without needing a barrel.
Amazing.
But you have to remember, Gwaltney was smart. He didn't just rely on destroying the physical weapon, he also had a very solid alibi.
Right, the timeline.
Yeah.
Which brings us to method number 3, granular timeline reconstruction.
Gwaltney claimed he was busy dropping off a neighborhood kid, a boy named Preston Olson.
And this was right around the exact time the murder happened.
Yes. And in the first 2 trials, this alibi totally held up.
Why is that? Did the kid lie for him?
No, not at all. The kid told the truth exactly as he knew it. The real problem was that the local police just accepted the timeline at face value.
Just took his word for it.
Yeah, Gwaltney basically said, I dropped him off at 5 boyo or whatever the specific time was, and the kid agreed because it sounded about right. It seemed to give Gwaltney an airtight alibi.
So how did the FBI finally break that?
They realized a fundamental flaw in the original interviews. Preston was just a young boy. He wasn't wearing a watch.
Ah. So how did he actually know what time it was?
He didn't. He was just guessing based on what the police suggested. So the FBI agent sat down with Preston and his mother, and they completely reconstructed that evening based on routine, not clocks.
Oh, that is so smart. Like asking what TV show was on when you walked through the door.
Exactly that. What show was on? What were your parents doing in the kitchen? By cross-referencing routine home events and the actual television programming schedule from that night, they realized that Gwaltney had actually dropped the boy off about 30 minutes earlier than he testified under oath.
And in a murder investigation, a 30-minute discrepancy is an eternity.
It really is. It opened up what investigators officially call a kill window.
Okay.
That 30 minutes was exactly the amount of time Gwaltney needed to get back to the highway, spot Robin Bishop's car, pull her over, assault her, kill her, and then call the incident in to dispatch.
It just really shows how fragile an alibi can be if you don't dig into the granular details. The local police just heard, hey, I was with him, and they just checked the box and moved on.
Details matter. Everything has to be verified. And speaking of the broader details, let's talk about the victimology. Gwaltney tried very hard to paint this whole incident as some sort of tragic accident or a total misunderstanding.
Right. He leaned heavily on his reputation as the good cop. Officer of the year, even.
Exactly. But the FBI's research showed he was definitely not a good cop. And that leads us to method number 4. Pattern recognition and behavioral profiling.
The behavioral analysis piece. Agent Michael Randolph really led this part of the charge, didn't he?
He did. He decided to stop looking at Gwaltney as a fellow law enforcement colleague and started looking at him purely as a predator.
Which is a huge mental shift.
It is. He asked a critical question. Does this type of extreme behavior exist in a vacuum?
And I'm guessing the answer was a definitive no.
Absolutely not. They decided to track down every single woman Gwaltney had pulled over in the previous 2 years.
Wow. Just think about the sheer legwork involved in that, tracking down drivers from years and old traffic tickets.
It's massive, but a very clear pattern emerged almost immediately. A dozen women came forward to the FBI.
A dozen.
Yes, and their stories were almost identical. He would stop them for speeding, usually out on the interstate. Then he would offer them a quote-unquote deal.
Let me guess. Sex or sexual favors in exchange for tearing up the ticket.
Exactly.
That is just sickening. It's a complete and total abuse of power.
It really is. But from an analytical standpoint, it provided both the motive and the method for the murder.
Wow.
And there was a vital geographic component to this pattern as well.
Okay, what was that?
He very often directed these women to follow him to a very specific, secluded access road to do this.
Let me guess. The exact same road where Robin Bishop was found dead.
The exact same spot.
Unbelievable.
It wasn't just some random location where he happened to, quote, find a body while on patrol. It was his established hunting ground.
Wow. This totally shifts the narrative for a jury. Robin Bishop wasn't just an unlucky traveler who ran into a bad situation. She was the victim of a serial predator.
Exactly. And this behavioral profile also explains a really key piece of forensic evidence that had been bothering investigators.
The lack of a struggle at the car?
Correct. The original autopsy showed she had engaged in sexual intercourse very close to the time of death. But there were absolutely no signs of forcible rape, no tearing, no bruising, consistent with a violent physical struggle initially.
Which originally made it look like it might have been consensual, which played right into his defense.
Right. But why was there no struggle? Because based on his established behavioral pattern, she likely thought complying with his demands would save her life.
Right. It was a transaction he had forced on women a dozen times before. She probably thought if I just do this, he'll let me go home.
Exactly. She was negotiating for her life with a police officer.
But this time, obviously, something went horribly wrong.
Right. Investigators believe she might have threatened to report him afterwards. Or, and this is highly likely, he might have seen a passing police cruiser. Deputy Kaufman actually passed by that area right around that time.
Oh, wow.
So Gwaltney likely panicked. He suddenly realized he was about to be exposed, and he escalated to murder to silence her.
Okay, so let's recap where we are. We have the tool marks proving the physical cover-up. We have the nuclear analysis linking the bullet. We have the granular timeline placing him at the scene. And the behavioral profile establishing his predatory pattern.
Right. But the defense was still fighting tooth and nail. They needed something unequivocally biological, something that linked him physically, bodily, to the crime scene.
Which brings us to method number 5. And honestly, looking at the case files, this really feels like the Hail Mary of the whole investigation.
It really was. You have to remember the era here. This is the early 80s. DNA testing, as we know it today, simply did not exist in courtrooms yet.
Right. They had semen samples found in the backseat of his patrol car and on the victim's jeans. But back in 1982, basically all they could tell from that was blood type, right?
Pretty much. And Gwaltney had a very common blood type. He was part of a very large demographic group of the population.
So the defense could just easily argue, hey, that could be anyone's.
Exactly. It wasn't specific enough. So how did the FBI narrow it down? They brought in a specialist, Dr. Edward Blake.
Okay.
He was working on the absolute cutting edge of forensic serology at the time. And the investigators had learned something very specific and very personal about Gwaltney's medical history.
What was it?
He had previously had a vasectomy, and then sometime later, he had it surgically reversed.
A vasectomy reversal. Okay, why does that actually matter, forensically speaking?
It's a really fascinating biological quirk. When a man has a vasectomy reversal, it can sometimes cause his body to produce what are called anti-sperm antibodies.
Anti-sperm antibodies.
Yeah. Essentially, the immune system gets confused by the surgery. It starts thinking the sperm are invading germs or foreign bodies, so it attacks them.
So his own immune system is basically tagging his sperm.
Exactly. So Dr. Blake used a brand new test called the immunobead assay. They tested the semen found at the crime scene, specifically looking for these rare antibodies.
Did they find them?
They absolutely found them. And here is the real kicker for the trial. Dr. Blake actually videotaped the test under the microscope to show the jury.
Oh, that's brilliant.
They literally watched a video of tiny microscopic beads actively attaching themselves to the sperm in the sample. It was undeniable visual proof of the antibody.
That is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just hearing some dry statistic from a scientist on the stand, the jury actually saw the science working with their own eyes.
And the statistics themselves were totally damning. Only about 5% of men with Gwaltney-specific blood type would ever develop these antibodies.
Wow.
So when you combine the blood type and the presence of the antibody, it narrowed the suspect pool from a huge chunk of the population down to less than 1% of all men.
Less than 1%.
Yeah.
I mean, that is as close to a modern DNA match as you could possibly get back in 1982.
It was completely revolutionary for the time. And it's fascinating because it highlights that it's not just about finding the evidence at the scene, it's about deeply understanding the specific biological history of your suspect.
Yeah.
The FBI calls this building the investigative mosaic.
Right, the mosaic. And it really leads us to the synthesis of this whole deep dive. Because when you look at these 5 methods individually, the tool marks, the nuclear chemistry, the timeline, the profiling, the serology, any one of those on its own might be argued away by a really expensive defense lawyer.
Absolutely true. A good lawyer could stand up and say, okay, sure, the tool marks match the wrench, but maybe he just used the wrench to fix the gun months ago.
Right. Or they could say, well, the timeline from a kid is just fuzzy memory.
Exactly. But when you stack every single one of them together, that is what investigators call the convergence of evidence.
Let's actually stack them up for you listening. We have the timeline reconstruction opening up the exact specific window he needed to commit the crime.
We have the tool mark analysis proving he mechanically destroyed the murder weapon to hide the ballistics.
We have the nuclear forensics proving the bullet in the victim's head came from the exact same batch of lead hidden in his closet.
We have the behavioral profiling proving he had a long-standing predatory habit of stopping women in the exact location for sex.
And finally, we have the advanced serology proving that his unique, rare biological signature was found directly on the victim.
It's just overwhelming. At that point, it's no longer a he said, she said situation. It's a he said, science said situation.
And science doesn't lie.
The jury certainly agreed. They didn't deadlock this time around.
No, they didn't. They convicted him very swiftly. He was ultimately sentenced to 90 years in federal prison.
He essentially received a life sentence for violating the civil rights of Robin Bishop, specifically her fundamental right to live.
It really highlights the incredible evolution of investigation. In the past, a case might rely entirely on eyewitness testimony or trying to force a confession.
Right.
But here, the FBI didn't even need a confession. They just reconstructed the reality of what happened using physics, chemistry, and biology.
That is the truly modern approach to investigative work. You don't just ask a suspect, did you do it? You ask, what traces did you leave behind?
Because everyone leaves a trace.
Everyone. Whether it's a microscopic scratch on a metal gun frame or an invisible antibody in a biological sample. It's Locard's exchange principle.
Every contact leaves a trace.
Every contact leaves a trace.
But before we completely wrap this up, I want to circle back to something we touched on at the very beginning of this deep dive. That concept of the wolf and the sheep pen.
It really is the lingering shadow over this entire case.
Because we've talked a lot about the hard science, but the social dynamic here is just as important. Gwaltney got away with this for 2 full trials. Why?
Trust. Simply put, trust. The entire system is inherently designed to trust the badge.
Yeah.
The initial local investigators, the local juries in those first 2 trials, they all operated on the baseline assumption that a highway patrol officer is fundamentally the good guy.
Is a really powerful bias to overcome.
It is. And the FBI had to consciously, deliberately break that bias to solve this. They had to look at a fellow law enforcement officer with the exact same cold, hard scrutiny they would apply to a known serial killer.
They couldn't hold back.
No. They had to look at, as they say in the FBI, every rivet and every rock.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? As you listen to this, you have to ask yourself, how many cases go cold or just remain unsolved forever? Because the investigators just can't bring themselves to look at one of their own.
It's a very provocative question. The science clearly works. I mean, we proved that today with the nuclear reactors and the immunobeads.
Right.
But the science only works if you are actually willing to point the microscope in the right direction. If you refuse to look at the insider, the evidence just remains invisible.
That is a deeply chilling thought to end on. We rely so heavily on that authority to keep us safe, but it has to be checked. Transparency and rigorous scientific methods are really the only checks we have.
Indeed. And in the tragic case of Robin Bishop, it took the full weight of the federal government and the absolute cutting edge of forensic science to finally get her justice. But they got it.
Well, that officially wraps up this deep dive into the George Gwaltney case and the amazing forensic methods that finally brought him down. A huge thank you to our expert for walking us through the technical side of things so clearly today.
My pleasure. It's always good to remind ourselves that facts leave a trail, no matter how hard someone tries to sweep them away.
Thanks for joining us as we explored the methods behind the madness. Keep questioning what you see, and we will see you on the next deep dive.